I am about to tell you something that will stay carved in your mind long after these words leave my lips. Yesterday, in a quiet corner of a cafe that most people would walk past without noticing, I witnessed something that revealed why the majority of men spend their entire lives invisible to women. The scene looked ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary to anyone else, but to me it was like watching a living demonstration of why men fail again and again without ever understanding why. There was a man, no older than 25, sharp haircut, clean shoes, a shirt that looked carefully ironed that morning. On the surface, he was the kind of man society tells you should succeed. He had the appearance of someone who has it together. But appearances lie, and what I saw unfold over the next 37 minutes explained why good men with good intentions end up forgotten. I watched this man sit across from a woman. She was beautiful in that effortless way that captures attention the moment she walks into a room. He was locked onto her, fully focused, trying with everything he had to hold her interest. Every word, every gesture, every attempt was aimed at making her smile, making her stay, making her choose him. And here is the part that shook me. He believed, with absolute certainty, that he was doing everything right. Every nod, every joke, every compliment, every lean forward was performed with the confidence of someone who thought he knew the script. But I watched him fail. Not dramatically, not loudly, but in the quiet way most men fail, by being forgettable. Do you understand how brutal that is? To believe you are following the rules, to believe you are on the right path, only to discover those rules were designed to keep you trapped. That is the story of most men. They think effort equals attraction. They think being nice, being attentive, being polished is the formula for success. But the truth is darker. The truth is that 99% of men are running a program inside their mind that guarantees failure. They are not failing because they are ugly. They are not failing because they are poor. They are failing because their thoughts, their behavior, their very instincts have been programmed to lose. And the cruelest part is they do not even realize it. That man in the cafe was a mirror, a reflection of almost every man who will ever hear this. You think you are different. You think your situation is unique, that somehow your kindness or your sense of humor or the way you dress gives you a special edge. You think the world owes you an exception because you play by the rules, because you are respectful, because you make an effort. But life is not fair in that way. Women are not compelled by the bullet points on your resume. Attraction is not a negotiation where effort automatically equals reward. And here is where men break. They think that if they just try harder, smile wider, listen longer, then one day the equation will balance. But the equation is rigged. Let me ask you something and be brutally honest with yourself. How many times have you had a conversation with a woman that felt incredible? Every word landed, every laugh was shared, everything felt aligned, and then she vanished like smoke. How many times have you thought you were the perfect man in that moment, doing everything by the book, only to watch her walk straight into the arms of someone who looked like he barely cared? How many nights have you stayed awake, replaying the situation in your head, asking yourself what went wrong, only to conclude it must be bad luck, wrong timing, or destiny playing a cruel trick on you? Wrong. It is not bad luck. It is not destiny. It is mathematics. It is psychology. It is the inevitable result of trying to play a game without knowing the rules. I remember myself at 20 years old. I believed the same lie you do. I thought if I dressed well, smiled at the right moments, kept my manners sharp and polished, that would be enough. So there I was at a party, standing in the corner like a ghost wrapped in his best shirt, invisible to everyone. I thought I was doing everything right. But then there was Alex. Alex was nothing like me. He was broke. He was sloppy. His clothes looked like he had pulled them out of a stranger's trash. And yet, while I stood there ignored, 3 women were pulling at Alex's attention, fighting for his time, laughing at everything he said. I stared in disbelief. I kept asking myself, what the hell is happening? That night broke something in me. It planted a question that haunted me for years until I finally understood. Women are not drawn to politeness. They are not magnetized by effort. They are not charmed by the way you carefully nod along to everything they say. The more you chase their approval, the more you dissolve into the background. It is a paradox. The harder you try, the faster you fail. And men hate this truth because it does not make sense in a rational world. But attraction is not rational. Attraction is not logical. Attraction is not about doing what makes sense. It is about doing what sparks emotion. The software inside your brain was written when you were a child. Your mother told you to be nice to girls. Your teacher told you to respect the ladies. Society told you to sacrifice yourself for the happiness of others. Happy wife, happy life. Those phrases became code, and that code has been running your entire life. But here is the problem. That code does not create attraction. That code creates obedience. That code turns you into a loyal pet, always wagging your tail, waiting for a treat, hoping to be chosen. But women do not crave a pet. They crave something else entirely. They crave independence. They crave unpredictability. They crave the man who can stand in front of them without collapsing, without begging, without needing. They crave the man who does not smooth over every bit of tension, who does not fold the moment he feels resistance. That is why Alex won that night, and why the man in the cafe failed in silence. Because women are not wired to fall for approval. They are wired to fall for polarity, for tension, for the energy that makes them feel alive. And until you rewrite that code inside yourself, until you stop running the script you were handed as a boy, you will repeat the same quiet failures again and again, just like the man I watched yesterday. Most men live their entire lives convinced that they are special, that somehow their situation is different, that they deserve an outcome other men cannot reach. This is the cruelest illusion, the quietest prison. Every man believes that because he is kind, because he dresses well, because he occasionally makes a woman laugh, he should be rewarded with her attention and her desire. But reality does not bend to this fantasy. Attraction is not a gift handed out to the polite. It does not care about your effort. It does not care about how much you want it. If the foundation of your mindset is wrong, then every step you take afterward is irrelevant. It is like trying to install Windows software on a Mac. No matter how brilliant the program is, no matter how flawless the design, it will never work because the operating system is incompatible. That is you every time you approach a woman with the wrong mindset. You can dress perfectly, you can memorize clever lines, you can rehearse the perfect date plan, but none of it matters. You are running the wrong code, and that is why again and again you feel the sting of disappearing women, of unanswered texts, of interest that fades as quickly as it appeared. Think about how many times you have replayed the same scenario. You meet someone, the conversation flows, you feel like everything is aligned. You walk away buzzing with excitement, convinced that something meaningful just happened. Then days later, she is gone. No explanation, no closure. Or worse, you see her with someone else, someone who did not even try, someone who did not seem to deserve her at all. And you tell yourself stories. Maybe she was confused. Maybe she was not ready. Maybe destiny had other plans. Wrong. It was none of those things. It was not destiny. It was not bad luck. It was the mathematics of attraction. You were playing a game you never learned the rules to. I learned this the hard way. At 20 years old, I stood at a party believing I had done everything right. I wore my best clothes. My manners were flawless. I smiled at the right times. I kept myself polished. And yet I was invisible, a ghost. Meanwhile, Alex, the man who broke every so-called rule, had women orbiting him like he was the center of the universe. He was not handsome. He was not rich. His clothes looked like they belonged to someone else. But Alex had something I did not. He was unpredictable. He was not begging for approval. He was not performing. He was not desperate to be chosen. And that night taught me a truth I would not fully understand for years. Women are not drawn to your résumé. They are not impressed by your intentions. They are not magnetized by the weight of your effort. The more you chase, the more you vanish. The more you try to prove your worth, the more you prove you have none. The harder you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. The reason most men fail is not because they lack charm or looks or money. The real reason is that they have been trained, almost since birth, to fear tension. Every interaction with a woman contains what I call polarity points, moments where the energy shifts, where the choice is either to raise tension or to smooth it away. And what do most men do? They panic. They sense even the smallest discomfort and rush to cover it with a joke, a compliment, or submission. They collapse instead of holding their ground. She tests you, and instead of pushing back with calm strength, you fold. She challenges you, and instead of standing firm, you bend. You think you are keeping things comfortable, but in reality, you are draining all the excitement out of the moment. Comfort is the enemy of desire. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly alive watching a movie with no conflict? When was the last time you sat on the edge of your seat during a story where nothing was at stake? Never. Human beings are wired to crave tension, uncertainty, push and pull. Women in particular feel this deeply. They do not want a man who makes every moment predictable. They want to feel energy, contrast, surprise. But what do most men do? They behave like an instruction manual. Page 1, I like you. Page 2, I'll do anything for you. Page 3, please choose me. End of story. And the conclusion is always the same: boring, forgettable, invisible. Now, I am not telling you to become cruel. Weak men hear this message and think, oh, so women like tension. Then I must act like a jerk. Wrong. Women do not want cruelty. They do not want disrespect. What they crave is independence. They want a man who owns his body, his words, his presence, who does not crumble just because a pretty face appears in front of him. Ironically, this is why so-called bad boys succeed. It is not because they are bad. It is because they genuinely do not care. They are not seeking approval. They are not desperate. They can walk away without hesitation, and that detachment creates gravity. But here is the key. You do not need to become careless to have the same effect. You can be decent, respectful, kind, and still have edge. The perfect combination is strength with warmth, independence with connection. The ability to challenge her without hostility, to disagree without disrespect, to keep your frame while still enjoying the moment. That is the balance most men never reach. Here is a simple example. Imagine meeting a woman online. She is stunning, and instantly your instinct is to try and be clever, to write something witty that will make her see you as unique. But by doing that, you have already lost. Why? Because your message is not for you, it is for her approval. You are not expressing yourself, you are auditioning, and she feels it. Women have a radar sharper than a lie detector. They have been observing male behavior since they were teenagers, studying every trick, every word, every move. You cannot fake confidence. You cannot fake independence. You must become it. So what should you do instead? Write something that amuses you. Say something that makes you laugh. Respond in a way that entertains you first, without caring about her reaction. That self-amusement, that grounded energy, cuts through the noise. It makes her pause. It makes her curious. It makes her feel something. That is how you create attraction without even trying. But most men cannot grasp this because they are addicted to approval. They cannot imagine speaking without calculating how she will respond. I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to agree with everything women said. I thought politeness would earn me points. But one day, when a woman said something I disagreed with, instead of nodding along, I looked her in the eyes and told her exactly what I thought. And do you know what happened? She did not leave. She did not get angry. She leaned in closer, intrigued, because for the first time someone treated her like a real human being, not a goddess on a pedestal. That is the secret. Elevate a woman too high, and she can only look down on you. Keep her on equal ground, challenge her when it matters, and you earn her respect. Without respect, attraction dies. With respect, desire grows. One of the biggest mistakes men make is believing attraction is addition. They think if they just keep adding more effort, more compliments, more availability, eventually it will stack up to something irresistible. They think if they keep showing up, keep texting, keep being present, the woman will one day recognize their devotion and reward it. But attraction does not work like that. Attraction is subtraction. It is about what you remove, what you withhold, what you refuse to give away too easily. Because what is always available is never valued. What is scarce creates demand. Think about your phone right now. The person who replies instantly every single time. The person who is always available at a moment's notice. How much do you value their messages? Probably very little. But the person who sometimes replies quickly and other times disappears for hours, the one who is unpredictable, whose attention feels rare, that person keeps you hooked. You find yourself staring at your phone, wondering why they have not responded, wondering what they are doing. That tension, that space, is where desire lives. And most men kill it immediately by flooding the market with themselves. They make themselves so accessible that they become worthless. I had to learn this lesson through failure. When I first started changing my mindset, I overcorrected. I went from being too nice to being indifferent, from always available to disappearing completely, from polite to unnecessarily confrontational. And even in my mistakes, I noticed something strange. Women were still more interested in me than when I was the perfect nice guy. Because even when I got it wrong, I was still unpredictable. I was not worshiping them. I was not collapsing under their presence. I was living by my own rules, even if those rules were clumsy at first. And that energy, imperfect but independent, was infinitely more attractive than flawless approval seeking. Let me give you a story that made this truth crystal clear. I was on a date with a woman so beautiful that other men turned their heads when she walked by. The kind of woman most men would treat like royalty just for the chance to stay near her. Halfway through the date, though, I realized something. I was bored. She was gorgeous, yes, but her words put me to sleep. And in that moment, the old me would have faked enthusiasm, nodded politely, and endured the boredom just to win her approval. But the new me did something else. I looked at her and said, "You are stunning, but this conversation is putting me to sleep. I'm going home. Netflix will be more interesting." And then I left. What do you think happened next? Most men would assume I ruined my chances forever. But that night she called me. The next day she chased me. Why? Because for once, a man valued his own time and attention more than her beauty. For once, she met someone who would walk away instead of worship. That is the frame that changes everything. Not cruelty, not arrogance, but self-respect so strong that it cannot be bought by looks alone. Most men only have one standard: is she attractive? That is the lowest possible standard. That is like buying a car because it looks shiny without ever checking if the engine works. You are setting yourself up for disaster. Real power begins when your standards run deeper, when you care about her character, her values, her presence, not just her appearance. And when you live with that mindset, something shifts. You stop performing. You stop chasing. You stop begging to be chosen. Instead, you start choosing. You start filtering. You start walking away from what does not serve you. And that is when women feel it. They sense your independence, your scarcity, your groundedness. And that is when you stop being invisible. Every man fears the friend zone, but very few understand why it exists. It is not a curse, not a random punishment, not bad luck. The friend zone is the place you are put when a woman feels no romantic respect for you. And how does that happen? It happens when you act like a friend while secretly wanting to be a lover. It happens when you bury your desire under a mask of politeness, hoping she will somehow read your mind and reward your patience. You think you are being strategic. You think you are building a foundation. But what you are really doing is teaching her to see you as safe, familiar, harmless, everything except attractive. I knew a man named Mike who lived this pattern again and again. He befriended every woman he admired. He became their therapist, their emotional support, their unpaid assistant. He was always available, always kind, always ready to listen. Then months later, he would confess his true feelings. And every time his heart was broken, he would say, "But I was so nice to her." Exactly. That was the problem. He was nice, but he was not attractive. He was agreeable, but he was not charged with desire. He played the role of a brother, a girlfriend, even a pet. He was never the man she wanted. And here is the truth most men do not want to face. Being nice is not a strategy. It is not enough. Women are not drawn to men who erase their own edges just to avoid offense. They are drawn to men who bring energy, who lead, who are unafraid to show intent. You do not need to be rude. You do not need to be arrogant. But you must be clear. You must carry yourself as a man who wants more than friendship from the very beginning. Not through desperate confessions months later, but through your actions, your words, your energy. A simple exercise can change everything. Next time you text a woman, stop before you press send. Ask yourself, am I sending this because I want her to react a certain way, or because it entertains me? If the answer is the first, delete it. If the answer is the second, send it. This filter forces you to stop auditioning for approval and start expressing yourself. Another practice: disagree politely when you truly disagree. Do not mirror her opinions out of fear. Say, "I see it differently," or "That movie was awful." You will be surprised how intrigued she becomes. Because strength is not silence. Strength is the ability to stand in your truth without collapsing. I once told a woman who believed in astrology, "Astrology is just organized birthday racism." She paused, laughed, and spent an hour trying to convince me otherwise. We had real energy, real dialogue. Imagine if I had just nodded and said, "Oh, that's cool, boring, forgettable, dead." Women cannot feel attraction without challenge. Respect comes from meeting someone who does not need their approval, and that respect is the soil where desire grows. But here is the deepest secret: you cannot fake this. You cannot pretend to be independent while craving her validation inside. You cannot act confident while living an empty life. Women sense it immediately. They can feel when you are wearing a mask. To truly change, you must build a life that excites you without her. You must have passions, goals, friends, routines, standards. You must be genuinely hard to get, not because you are pretending, but because your life is already full. That is what makes you magnetic. That is what separates the man who chases from the man who chooses. Most men will never do this. They will keep running the same program they learned at 15, hoping kindness will buy attraction. They will waste decades wondering why it never works. Do not be that man. Be the one who breaks the script. Be the one who rewrites the code. And when you do, you will discover something astonishing. You no longer need her approval to feel alive. You are already alive. You are already full. And from that place, women stop being your goal. They become your choice.